moving right along into Group C, first team we're going to have is obviously going to be Denial. So Denial also making some changes throughout the past couple of weeks before World Finals starts. They actually decided to release replays and pick up Classic from Elevate. So off the bat, I was kind of a little bit surprised by this roster change. What kind of simulates to me is that Denial was looking for a more, type of aggressive type of player. Replays is by no means an aggressive player. He was the objective guy. He was the objective mastermind, always getting in hard points, not necessarily going for kills. But Classic is a little bit opposite of that. So I'm not sure what exactly they're doing in the light of what they're trying to accomplish that they didn't already. In hardpoints, they would always, and from what I've seen them in the games that they've played, and the first hardpoint, they would consistently slay out the other team, but they would end up losing. It was like they were, Hook would drop 40, Slasher would drop 30, and along with Temp and whatnot, and then they would somehow lose the game, and like they would be leading the entire game with like 8 or 9 plus kills, and they don't know where they went wrong. So I'm not sure what to kind of say for this team, to be honest with you. I'm a big fan of Classic and whatnot coming from Elevate. He's kind of inconsistent times, but can be very, very good when he needs to. Temp has kind of played that support role throughout the entire game, and we'll most likely see Classic kind of adapt to that also. But Denial's not a team to sleep on by any means. Their slang definitely got better, but we'll see how they do in the objective category and see how they do getting in the hard points and staying in the hard points consistently. Next team we have to talk about also in Group C is going to be Epsilon. So Epsilon also made a one-player roster change, which completely shocked me. We just talked about Royalty kind of, being similar to Joe from Vitality, and, they actually made a roster change. They actually got rid of Royalty and ended up picking Aqua from Envy. So this was a massive change for me. I had no idea what was going on, to be real with you, but the current roster for Epsilon consists of Remy, Nagafin, Parasite, and Aqua. So 3 players previously playing together on TR. They were the runners-up for COD Champs on Team Revenge, and, they're very talented young guys. I'm a big fan of this old roster, but now with Aqua, they have a completely different type of team. Royalty was more of a very aggressive SMG type of player. Aqua can be that, but he's more of an S&D type of guy. You're gonna see Aqua by no means not drop numbers in hardpoint, but in Search and Destroy is where he really shines. He's always kind of the guy in respawns trying to annoy you. He's gonna be on the flank. He's gonna be doing things that you're not normally expecting. And whenever he was on Envy, I always thought that there was something just off. And I don't know what it was. It just seemed like whenever they were trying to get team scrims, when they were trying to, play their squads, it was like, where's Aqua at? Like, why isn't he on right now? Why isn't he playing with us? And I think Aqua is finally happy with the team that he's on. He's a very big guy from what I've seen about chemistry. He wants to, enjoy the guys that he's playing with. It's not just about winning. It's, he wants to have a type of family aspect as well. So, with that, he's got some great players alongside him. The main player that I'm looking at for Epsilon has got to be Nagafin. Nagafin, whenever we see them do well at events, excluding like Dallas and also Season 3 playoffs, whenever they have Nagafin going off, they, for some reason, just absolutely dominate. I don't know what it is. It's just whenever he throws himself at the opposition, whenever he plays like the Nagafin that we've seen him play at, they just have so much, talent. They have so much charisma that I would have never predicted with, the lineup that they had. And I wasn't really sure how they were going to perform with the, additions of not really getting rid of Swanee, but Swanee leaving the team and Parasite filling in. It's a completely different leader that you have. And, the run that they went on at Season 3 playoffs, beating Denial, beating Elevate, beating FaZe, and then beating FaZe 3-1, and then OG 3-0, they would end up losing those games to FaZe and OG because they were best of 7s. But, that amount of talent is crazy. The amount of talent that they have and the amount of charisma that they bring into a game is insane. They're definitely, to me, a top 5 team, if not a top 4 team right now, in my opinion. They're definitely a squad that I see making out of this group. Spoiler alert, but I don't care. But Nagafin is the main key to this team, and we're going to see how Aqua does, because it seemed like whenever that Nagafin was going off, it was like Royalty was dropping around 40 to 50 kills, which is by no means easy. So we'll see how Aqua does. It's going to be very difficult for them to kind of replicate their recent performance at the Season 3 playoffs, but if it's anything like we've seen Epsilon do, you can never count out these guys. So we'll see how they do. Next team we have in Group C is going to be Rise Nation. Rise Nation has had so many roster changes throughout this year, so I'm going to go and read you guys off their current roster, which is consisting of Chino, Wheats, Burnsoff, and Mr. Patrick Price. What can I say about Patrick Price? He's one of the most known players in Call of Duty history. I believe he's second in like overall wins behind Crim6 with like 19. And I love Aches. I love Aches. It's like the guy that you love to hate in a way, but I don't hate him at all. He's gonna have to lead this squad without a doubt. They actually made a roster change, obviously losing Apathy, who went to TK, and picking up Aches from the team of TCM, which decided to kind of disband for this final event. But they're not disbanding for good, but they're just disbanding for Worlds. Jerd went to a different squad, which we'll mention in a minute. But Rise is very different. They're a lot different than a lot of other teams. I think they're kind of like I relate Rise to a type of puzzle, if this makes sense. I relate Rise to the fact of if this player does that role, then that player does this role, if that player does his roles, and it kind of like they bounce off each other, if that makes any sense at all. I know I'm not probably making any, but it's like there's been a really hard time so far with Chino. Chino was regarded as one of the best players when Call of Duty Advanced Warfare first came out. Chino was like, or people were like, Chino is fantastic. He's a great player. He's a phenomenal slayer. It seemed like when he started to play that more of objective type of style, he struggled, which, is what you would kind of think of whenever you switch from one role to another. So I think why it's good that they picked up Aches is that he's going to play more of a support role. That's what he kind of did on TCM for the most part. He would hop in the hills. He had no problem doing what needed to be done to win. And I think if Aches can kind of realize that, if he can kind of portray that in this team, by no means do I not see this team playing well at Worlds, but it's going to be difficult for them due to the fact of the players that they have on this team. In my opinion, this has been Wheats' best title of Advanced Warfare. He's a very good player. A guy that kind of goes under the radar. He's not a guy to drop insane numbers, but he's a guy to be consistent for the most part. Chino, I want to see him play more of a Slayer role. I want to see him getting hard points and just not care. I want to see him play a hook role where he just goes around, kills people, and everything just, kind of goes in line. Burnsoff is one of my favorite players to watch. He's the guy to just basically do everything around the map. He's going to have his hand in the objective role. He's going to have his hand in the slang. He's going to be doing pretty well. Insertion destroys as well. But the main player that I'm watching for this team and the player to lead this squad is going to be Aches. If there is one event that Aches wants to win, or two events, it's the first event or it's the last event. Obviously, he did win the Columbus Open with FaZe. He won that one, and he wants to end this game out with a bang, winning this final, MLG World Finals event also. So if there is ever an event to see Aches go off, it is this one. He's going to have to if he expects Rise to get out of this pool. But moving on to our final team of Group C that we know of, it is going to be Millennium. So the other day on the sticks, the last show that we did, I keep talking about the sticks and whatnot, but on the last show that we talked about, people were asking me, what do you think about Millennium? And I say, I like the team. And then someone asked me, do you think that they can finish top 2 in their pool? And I was like, anything is possible, but not everything is likely. So, I like Millennium. I like the team. I'm a big fan of Gotaga, the French monster, known as the best player in France. He's got alongside him Rated, Reedy, and Moose. Reedy coming from like Infuse, as well as Rated coming from, other teams and whatnot. Yada, yada, yada. I like Millennium. Don't get me wrong. I think this is a good team. I like the players on this squad. Without a doubt. Do not take that as something else. I'm sorry, I'm scrolling on Twitter, but I like Millennium. I like the guys on Millennium. But when you look at the other players on this team, you see a pretty good Denial team. You see a very, very good streaky Epsilon team, and you also see Rise Nation, who I think got better through Roster Mania also. So is it possible for them to make it out of this group? Yes. But is it going to be a struggle? Absolutely. They're going to have to play so well. And from what we've seen Gotaga play NA events or play, these major events against NA teams, he seemed to really struggle with whatever roster he's been on, whatever team he's been a part of. And, we're going to have to see him go off. I want to see the French monster in full force. And he's got some good players around him as well. So we'll see how Millennium does. But as far as Group C goes, based on previous things that I've seen, I'm going to say Denial makes it out as well as Epsilon, like I said, from this Group C pool. Group pool, yeah. We finally made it to the final group. I apologize for how long this video has been, but I told you it was going to be a long one, and I'm happy that it is long because this is the final event, finally done after this group. This is the final group that I'm going to be talking about for Advanced Warfare. It's crazy. And then in another month or two, I'm going to be talking about Black Ops 3, so let's go. All right, so the final group we have is going to be consisting of Elevate, Envy, Orbit, and Citadel. Elevate, along with like 99% of every other team, made a roster change, a one-person roster change, and that was gaining Octane from Envy and replacing Classic. So I'm a big fan of this roster change. Believe it or not, I do say that roster changes definitely affect teams much more than people think. I said it's 25% of your communication. I'm a big fan of Octane. I'm just going to say that now. I'm a big fan of Octane, and when this team kind of first started out, when they had like Apathy on the team as well as Classic, it was like, who's going to run the bow for us? Who's going to run the bow for our team? And they didn't really have that down. Classic and Slat kind of debated who was going to run it. Now that they have obviously made roster changes and picked up TJ Halley through all this and also picked up Octane, this is a good team. And I like the pickup of Octane because now they have a guaranteed bow. Everyone can play the role that they're comfortable with. And Octane is the main guy for this team who has been one of the best players and one of the best ARs that we have in the game right now. And I think that he kind of proves that on a regular basis. Envy definitely kind of relied on him for a lot of their slaying, so he's used to kind of picking it up when he has to. So, along with this roster, Slack, Saints, TJ Halley, and Octane, a lot of consistency on the squad, a lot of great players on this team. You look at Saints, he's been going positive since, stats were even recorded. You can't even go back far enough to see this guy go negative if he ever has. Slacked, I've seen him drop numbers consistently. I've seen him drop 1.20 KDs like it's nothing. TJ Halley, one of the most explosive players to come out through Advanced Warfare. He can drop numbers in uplink. He can do crazy stuff, and he's ultimately very annoying to play against. Octane, like we just said, one of the best ARs in the game, and it's going to be very difficult to kind of play against him also. So all these guys are kind of relayed as Slayers. I'm very interested to see who's going to kind of pick up that objective role, what players are going to focus on, picking up the bomb or, grabbing the uplink drone, throwing it ahead, just doing the stuff that players don't like to do whenever they're relating it to their KD. So I think Elevate's a fantastic roster. This is probably one of my favorite teams to come out of Roster Mania. We'll see how it works out, but, this is definitely a very good team and probably the best team, in my opinion, out of Group D. Next team we have to talk about is going to be Team Envy. So Envy is definitely, we just went from one high and an Elevate to another low, basically. The highest of highs and the lowest of lows throughout Roster Mania in Team Envious. Envy lost two fantastic players, an Aqua who went to Epsilon and an Octane who went to Elevate, and, it was very difficult for Looney and JCap. I said they lost half their team in about 10 minutes because that's exactly what happened. A major deal with them was probably their chemistry. And a lot of people will debate and say, oh, that Envy team wasn't really that good. They placed pretty well, but it wasn't as good as I thought that they would be. Envy has had so many difficult brackets, how many difficult times they've played different teams, and it's ultimately led to their demise. I think one thing especially was Season 3 playoffs when they had to play Elevate, Denial, Phase. They had a lot of hard teams to play against, and that's how it's been in a lot of the tournaments that this roster did play against. So, Envy has had a lot of struggles, and I'm having a hard time talking about Envy right now, but I feel bad for them. I feel bad for the organization, not for the players that they picked up, but for the position that they were laid into. You have to pick up half of a roster, basically, in 2 days before the World Finals before the cutoff kind of happened for World Finals. So the roster currently consists of obviously Looney and JCap, and now Jerd and Goonjar. So Goonjar kind of came from MW. He was on a team with Pac-Man, Ivy, and Cells, and that team kind of got dropped off the bat. And Jerd kind of coming on loan from TCM. Jerd basically kind of not kicked off, but got rid of Aches, Teep, and Fears, and decided, I can't really find a team. I'm gonna go and join Envy, which I think Envy got really lucky with the pickup of Jerd. I'm a big fan of Envy's sub game, but their AR game is where I think that they're going to kind of lack. Jerd is always going to have at least double digits in the slang category and also the amount of hardpoint captures that he has. Honestly, it doesn't surprise me if Jerd has more hardpoint captures than kills. That's not true. But it's still, he gets a lot of hardpoint captures, all right? So you have JCap, who isn't the best Slayer in the game. Everyone knows that. He's more of a support player, but he's not a bad player. A lot of the times I see, whenever JCap starts off well, he has a fantastic event. It kind of seems to me his Friday kind of seals out how he's going to do for the rest of the tournament. That's not necessarily always true, because I've seen JCap had a hard day one, and then moves on and does really well. Jacob's kind of streaky at times, but he's a fantastic support player. He's a veteran of the scene. He's been playing basically forever. So he knows, how to lead this team. He knows how to be. He's played this game for a long time. And Goonjar has had so many issues with rosters. He's been on countless teams. He's been on TK, then he went to Rise. He's been on MW. He's been on 3s Up, XGN, Euphorics. I think I just named his entire roster history but he's been on a lot of teams, and by no means has this been a good title for Mr. Javon. So we'll see how Gunjar does moving forward with this team. If there was a player that I'm looking at to do well and to kind of lead this team, I think Gunjar is the player that I'm looking at, to be completely honest with you. If I see Gunjar have a positive KD and do well consistently in every game type, this team can 100% compete. By no means am I saying Gunjar is a bad player, but if Gunjar can even replicate anything that Octane did, we can see this team have success. And like I said, if there's ever an event to do well at, it is the final one. Envy, by no means going to have an easy run. We'll see how they do. The final teams that we have left to talk about, my voice is basically being lost right now, is going to be Orbit. So Orbit is obviously the third team in this Group D. Orbit also making a one-person roster change, this time getting rid of Accuracy, who didn't find a team, at least as far as I know, and picking up Replays from Denial. So off the bat, I think honestly the Accuracy is very underrated. I like the guy a lot. I think he's a fantastic, support type of minded player. But they have some pretty good slayers on this Orbit team already. Orbit's roster is currently consisting of Facento, Happy, TCM, and also, like I mentioned, Replays. This team has a lot of young slayers, and if you would have looked at Ghosts and Black Ops 2, at least if you would have looked pre-Advanced Warfare, I guarantee you wouldn't know who obviously everyone was except for Replays. Like, at least I don't know who any of these guys were. And the previous teams that Replays has had to work with, he's had to work with younger players. He's had to work with players who weren't necessarily always known, and he's kind of had to be the leader, not for his previous teams, but the previous team he had with Hook and Temp and Slasher, included. This will be yet again another task for Chris Crowder to try to kind of come out with. Could this team be successful? I absolutely think so. I think they could be kind of a dark horse coming into this tournament. Do I think they're going to make it out of this group? I don't really know, to be real. I'm still kind of thinking about which teams I think are going to make it out. But Orbit, not a team to sleep on. They're a very good team. They can also catch you off guard when you least expect it. A team that I like to kind of compare to in ISO, where I think they can beat a lot of these major teams. But we'll see, kind of moving forward how they do. Moving on to our final team of these groups. And the final group player team of Advanced Warfare that Landon will talk about is going to be Citadel Gaming. Now, for those who don't know and might have missed, I made a video talking about Citadel and some interesting things that they actually happened, or some interesting things that happened with them, and I will link that video in the description if you guys are interested. Basically what happened, I'm not going to go into it, but Citadel released something stupid on Twitter, and now everyone kind of hates them in a way, so sorry for them. But Citadel, I'm actually going to look up their roster right now. I don't know too much about Citadel. They're an Australian team. They're the only Australian team, at least in the group stages. The roster is Hojo, Dismal, Lackey, and Carey. So I don't really know too much about them. I'm going to be real. I don't know too much about them. Australian teams have done well in the past. Will this team do well? I don't know. Honestly, I think if there was a group to do well in, it would be Group D, in my opinion, just because of a struggling Envy team, not as well of a known Orbit squad, and a pretty good Elevate team. Citadel could beat them. I don't really know, but we'll see. This is the final event, so we could see an AU team try to go off with a bang also. So looking at Group D, the two teams who I think are going to make it out are going to be Elevate, and between Envy and Orbit, I'm going to say Envy wins that one just based off of the aggressive SMGs that Envy have. I'm a really big fan of Envy's sub-game. Having Looney injured is a definite positive for them. One of the only positives I think this roster kind of has. So, yeah. So I'm going to say out of Group D, Elevate and Envy making out, and that's going to kind of conclude everything that I've talked about. God. So as a recap, the teams who I think are going to make it out of each group, from Group A, I think Opta Gaming and TK are going to make it out. Out of Group B, I have FaZe Clan and ISO. Out of Group C, I have Denial and Epsilon. And in Group D, I have Elevate and Envy. Keep in mind really quickly before I talk about open bracket teams really quick, is that anything can happen. I always say that. I've been saying that through the entire video. I'm getting situated here. This is the tournament where you can turn everything around. This is the tournament where crazy things can happen. We can see people who weren't necessarily motivated, but realizing this is the last time, this is the final week that I have to play Advanced Warfare. So I'm going to turn up and play my heart out because I don't have to play this game again. I don't have to ever touch this game again. And for good reason, a lot of the players hate playing it for the most part. So with that, congratulations. This is the last time you have to play this. Why not do my very best in trying to end it out? So some open bracket teams that I'm looking at really quickly as we kind of talk about my predictions really fast. One team that I'm looking at in particular has got to be Justice. You look at DC; they were an open bracket team. They came into their group, which had FaZe in their team in their bracket, and they beat them 3-0. They ended up beating their entire bracket and moved on to the winners bracket, and completely caught everyone off guard. So Justice is definitely a team that I'm looking out for. When you have two explosive players in Envoy and also Kenny, they're a very lethal team, and having the leadership of Spacely behind them and a very dominant AR in Assault, you can obviously see them have success. Another team that I'm looking out for is going to be Lethal Gaming. Lethal Gaming is a very, very good team, having two players from Tactical Turtles and Imruiz and also Cade, and two players previously on Vex and Proto and Holler. If I was looking at one player from Lethal Gaming, it would definitely have to be Proto or Prado. I'm not really sure how to say his name, but he is a fantastic player. Gonna go off an uplink. I believe he plays at a pretty high sensitivity, so much like similar to a player like Royalty. He's a fantastic player, and I think that definitely Lethal is a team to be watching out for. The last open bracket team that I'm going to be talking about is going to be Thrust, or Thrust Nation. Thrust is a very new team, Keemstar's newest squad, and they have a very dominant lineup on paper. Their current roster, not their current, their roster consisting of Lacefield, Fears, I don't know why I said Fears, Royalty, and Mochilla. So really quickly, all of these teams, in my opinion, were probably one of the best players on their squads, at least their previous team. Mochilla, coming from Owen, was the dominant AR for the squad. Royalty, a fantastic player for Epsilon. Fears, coming from TCM, fantastic AR for them as well. And Lacefield, one of the best players, if not the best player previously on XGN as well. So looking at these two, looking at this team in particular, this is a very dominant team on paper. How they kind of revolutionized their chemistry and how they've been working together in these past couple of weeks, that will decide their future. Very good team on paper, have very good roles, and just about everything that you could think of. Say they do, that's finally it. Two teams who I think are going to be in the grand finals, Optic Gaming and FaZe. Very big surprise, I know. Optic Gaming and FaZe have been the two teams in the grand finals for every single event except for the grand finals of COD Champs, which was Denial. There's only been 3 teams who have won a major in this entire title, which, like I said, are FaZe, Optic Gaming, in one event in Denial Esports. So these guys have been at the top of their game for the entirety of Advanced Warfare, and honestly, they look to be dominating just as good. So when I look at FaZe, when I look at Optic Gaming together against each other, I'm not going to talk about this for super long, at least I hope not. Whenever Clay has joined a team, excluding Envy at the beginning of the game, let's not talk about that. Whenever Clay has joined a team, Black Ops 2, Ghost, or Advanced Warfare, he has always made the team be consistent or even better. I'm sure I'm showing you a stat on screen right now with that, kind of in mind. He took Denial from a pretty good team to placing pretty well. He took a struggling FaZe team from being, pretty much average to a fantastic squad. And when you look at Optic Gaming throughout the entirety of Advanced Warfare, the one team that they have consistently struggled with, if they would have not struggled against this one team, they would have probably won every event, to be real, which has been FaZe. The first roster with like Sensor and Slasher and Aches, and also Apathy, and now this new team with Clayster, Attach and Enable. This team is just so good. If I was to see the first FaZe team playing its second FaZe team, I would say the current FaZe team would literally kill them. Just absolutely murder them. You can say, oh, this is Optic Gaming's best map. Oh, this is FaZe's best map. I don't care. Whenever these teams play each other, something else just happens. Something else goes on where all those stats are just thrown out the window. I could say, oh my gosh, whenever this happens, whenever Enable goes off in game 2, he does well in game 3. There can be any stat that you have, and when you line it up, whenever Optic Gaming and FaZe are playing against each other, throw it out the window, because it doesn't matter anymore, because these teams completely change things up whenever they play each other. You look at it and you say Optic Gaming has not beat this team yet on land. This current FaZe team of Attach and Clayster included. The main player that I'm looking at for Optic Gaming, the main player that I'm looking at for FaZe, Clayster. Clayster has been a leader. I've talked about him countless times. To me, he's one of the best battles in the game, if not the best battle in the game, and he's going to be versing Formal. Honestly, when you look at Call of Duty, when you look at a game as a caster's perspective, what I always relate to is the bow battle going on. You look at a regular game, you look at the players playing each other, but the bow battle, whenever you're looking at different maps, when it comes to like comeback uplink and stuff, whoever can kind of control glass is most likely going to win that. So that's whenever kind of battles clash against each other. Different maps, you look at recovery, search and destroy, sniping battles going down. You look at biolab, who can control the map for the most part. It really just depends. Whatever map you play in, you can basically throw all stats at the window, because when Optic Gaming and FaZe play each other, something else happens, and I cannot tell you what's going to happen because it doesn't make sense. So with that, Optic Gaming and FaZe, it'll be a best of 7 if they do meet each other in the grand finals. And if there was one player that I'm looking at for Optic, honestly, it's hard to predict because you could say Scump. Scump's going to be consistent. You say Formal. He's most likely going to be consistent. He's playing against Clayster, who's one of the best in the game at the same position that he plays in. You look at Karma, going to be playing an objective role. Can he kind of compete? Can he have a high KD in this game? That's the question. I think, honestly, whenever these two teams match up, and the one stat that I can kind of relate to is the KDs of the teams. I'm probably showing you another graphic of the KDs that FaZe has compared to Optic. I believe only one player normally goes positive since Dallas whenever these teams play against each other. FaZe all go positive. Optic, I believe only one player goes positive for them either. So with that, Optic's going to have to kind of compete for once in the slang category versus FaZe. Whenever I look at these two teams and I kind of relate them together, it's honestly the communication, I think, is a main factor for them. It seems that FaZe kind of isn't rattled, but they're always very focused. You look at them play other teams, not that they're laughing, but they're very comfortable. When they play Optic, it's a lot different. When Optic Gaming communicates, it's basically the same thing. When these two teams play each other, things just go haywire. I don't know what it is. This has been the story throughout Advanced Warfare, FaZe and Optic versus each other. It kind of goes back to even at the beginning of YouTube. Whenever Call of Duty started, Optic Gaming and FaZe, who's the best sniping clan? And you know, whatever have you. This is one of the most historical matchups ever in Call of Duty, and I'm not portraying it the way that I feel like I should. But still, Optic Gaming and FaZe, who is going to win? I made a video talking about these teams in particular, which I'm not going to upload because I basically said everything in this kind of short entry. That will finally do it for my predictions for Advanced Warfare, the final event. It is over. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you guys did enjoy, make sure to leave a like. And if you've enjoyed any of my videos talking about predictions or talking about roster changes throughout Advanced Warfare, I would really appreciate a like, especially on this video. It's the final one that I'm going to be making about a tournament, at least the prediction side of things. Obviously, we will have a recap as well. Like I said, I'm going to be going to this event, also recording a bunch of different stuff, and if you're at this point in the video, I appreciate you because you stuck around for a very long time, and I'm currently at an hour and 6 minutes, so we'll see how long I cut this down to. But guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you guys want to comment, leave me your predictions in the comments below. I will take a look at those, and I'm going to go take a nap and study for a major things that I have to do tomorrow. So guys, I will see you all later. Have a great day. I'll see you at Worlds if you're there. Let me know if you are. Tweet at me. Link to my Twitter in the description. I'll see you guys later. I'm done. Goodbye. I ended that incorrectly. Peace out.